Hello, everyone, and happy holidays and happy World Junior time. You are watching Called Up the Prospects Pod. It's the holidays, everybody. I've had too much eggnog, apparently. It's Called Up the Prospects Podcast. I'm your host, Chris Peters, with my co-host, the illustrious Cam Robinson, the festive Cam Robinson of Elite Prospects. And Cam, does it get any better than? Oh, look at this! You are a mean one, Mr. Grinch. Does it get any better than this, buddy? And what we do? I mean, I get so jacked up for the World Juniors. I know you do too. I mean, is this not the best time of year?
It's the best time of the year. I mean, I've been called out for saying that the draft is the best time of the year as well, but this is the best time of year. It's we got all the nationalistic pride. Everybody's eating too many sweets. We're in our pajamas. We're watching World Juniors. The family's together. We're cheering on our country. It's a great time. I'm very excited for it, as always, and looking forward to linking up in Ottawa with you and maybe doing some shows live as we cover this hopefully legendary tournament.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'll be nice to be in person, conversing, commiserating, and certainly evaluating a lot of what's happening here. And we're going to get everybody ready for this tournament, which begins on December 26th, Boxing Day. Not really a holiday in the United States. In Canada, it is a holiday, and probably more so a holiday because of the opening of the World Junior Championship. But we do love the fact that we get to celebrate hockey with the holidays. And so today we're going to talk about the big teams. We're going to talk about USA. We're going to talk about Canada. We're going to talk about Sweden, Finland, all of those teams, and really kind of drill down in some of the things that make those teams what they are, their strengths, their weaknesses, the players to watch, different things that you should know as a fan. And then on top of that, we're also going to kind of have some of our regular segments, but all World Junior focused, including our World Junior Championship medal predictions. We're even going to throw an MVP prediction in there as well. So you will have to wait and see what Cam and I are thinking about how this tournament is ultimately going to go. But Cam, let's get into it. And before we start there, just want to remind everybody, this is a brand new podcast. So we are still trying to generate more viewers, more listeners. And we want to make sure that you guys are getting the word out to your family, your friends, anybody that loves the World Juniors. Make sure they get this episode of the podcast. We're available across the podcast apps. You can also watch us on YouTube and on FloHockey.tv or via the Flow Sports app. You can also get all of the great clips from this show across FloHockey social media platforms, and you'll also see them on Elite Prospects social media platforms as well. So if you ever want to see mine and Cam's face more than you ever wanted to see them, those are the places to do it. And there they are again on your screen if you are watching and following along. All right, Cam, let's get into this. Let's get into the World Juniors. We're going to start with the defending World Junior champion, United States of America. They are going for back-to-back titles. It's never been done by Team USA before. What are the things that you think are important to know about Team USA as we enter into the World Juniors?
Well, as we know, right, returning champs, bringing a whole heck of a lot of players back from this tournament. I believe it's 10 returnees. Yeah. The big players, right? We're talking Gabe Perreault, Ryan Leonard, Jimmy Hagens, Zeeb Buium, Trey Augustine. All of those players have a potential to be stars at this event. And then you've still got a guy like Oliver Moore, who's probably going to be like the second line center, maybe the fastest kid at this entire event, right? Danny Nelson's going to be that big body power center too. So they've got a lot of depth. They've got a lot of scoring, a lot of high-end stuff. They've got a lot of good things going for them this year.
Yeah, they certainly do. And, you mentioned some of the guys. Obviously, I think all eyes for draft watchers will be on James Hagens. He's going to be Team USA's number one center. He is going to be the guy that's there. And we'll talk about James Hagens a little bit more in just a second. But I want to kind of drill down a couple of these real key players for this team. And certainly Hagens is one of them. But we've talked about it on this show before. And I think we need to talk about it again, is just what USA has that I think is really the benefit is they've got a number one goalie that's now going to be playing in his third World Junior Championship. And not only that, Trey Augustine is playing some of his best hockey of his career right now. .930 save percentage with Michigan State this year, had some big wins. You also got Ryan Leonard and Zeeb Buium. I think you put that trio up against anybody in the tournament, and you're going to like your chances. I mean, what do you think about that group, and what are the things that stand out to you about Ryan Leonard, Zeeb Buium, Trey Augustine? These guys are really what I think is truly USA's core. of their team and what will help them be, a gold medal contender.
Well, I mean, outside of Augustine, like you could make the debate that all of them could be in the NHL, right? Like that they are that
Right.
level of talent. Obviously, Hagens isn't draft, he's a draft eligible right now, so he'll be there next year. But Ryan Leonard could have come out of school. Gabe Perreault had the opportunity to come out of school. I mean, I'm sure Minnesota would have been okay with Zibuiam coming out anyways, too. Like they're that level of player. We said it last week too, is that I have a feeling that USA could run the table on this, top goalie, top D, top forward, maybe the MVP as well. Go repeat, and maybe Leonard's going to be blowing a kiss to the fans in Ottawa like he was in Gothenburg last year. They, in my mind, they are the favorites coming into this event, and it's because of that core, because they are so talented, but they also have, other elements to their game. Leonard brings the physicality, right? Hagens has a good two-way and he has speed. Gabe Perreault is dual threat. Buium, again, just excellent on both sides of the rink. And then Augustine, in my opinion, head and shoulders runaway favorite to be the goaltender at this event. I think he is someone who can steal games, steal tournaments, steal medals for this country too. So the core is rock solid.
Yeah, and I think with that core and with what we've seen from Team USA over the course of, the last couple of years, they are bringing back the same coaching staff. And, I think Zeev Buium, when you talk about Buium, Leonard, Augustine, these are probably the guys that when you look at the end, obviously Augustine's the goalie, so he's going to be out there the whole time. But Buium is certainly going to be the minutes leader for this team. He's going to play in all situations. He's going to be a huge factor on the power play, top power play unit. Then you've also got Leonard, and he can play in pretty much any situation as well. I think USA has really good penalty killers, so they don't necessarily need to use him there. But we've seen him and Oliver Moore were one of the more formidable penalty killing duos that we've seen at the National Team Development Program over the years. But you've got all those guys, and we're talking about those three guys, and we haven't even mentioned, we have mentioned him, but we haven't focused in on him. But Gabe Perreault, the top returning scorer from last year, 10 points. 7 of them came in the final 3 games of the tournament. Really turned it on at the end of that tournament. And so those are, you kind of add those guys, and Oliver Moore and Danny Nelson, as you noted, Drew Fortescue, another returning player. We talked 10 returning players. 3 of them did not play a regular role on last year's team, but still 10 returning players. The notion that this is only a 19-year, this is always a 19-year-olds tournament. Well, they just brought back all these guys, and think about the benefit that has as you're trying to chase another gold medal. So a lot to like there. But I do want to get back to James Hagens too, Cam, and we'll continue to talk about Team USA. But I do want to talk about James Hagens, and obviously, when you are one of the top draft eligible players, there is more expected of you. And regardless of what happens, regardless of the result, however the World Junior goes, that is going to set the discussion for the draft, at least in the public. Now guys like yourself and me and all the other draft analysts out there, and certainly the scouts, are going to look at the totality of the picture. They're not just going to look at 1 week of or 2 weeks of hockey and determine everything. But how critical is it, do you think, that this tournament will be, not just in terms of setting the discussion, but really setting the perception of what James Hagens can be at the next level, given the fact that he is going to be Team USA's #1 center?
No, you're absolutely right. And, it's important for a player like Hagens to set the narrative in his favor, right? Like he came into this season being the presumptive, the consensus #1. And it was for good reason, right? Set the scoring record of the U17 championships, set the record for scoring at the U18 championships. This kid knows how to show up on a big, big stage. Obviously, huge numbers with the program there. He's gone to Boston College. He's been good, right? He just hasn't been as productive as guys like Celebrini and Fantilli were in their draft years, and going back Jack Eichel or those types of players. He's just not quite at that level production-wise, but on the whole, he's been still very, very strong. He was a little snake bitten early on, but that opened the door, right? Is that people have become so accustomed to the first overall pick being so demonstrably talented, so the point totals to be so gaudy that it's so obvious, right? Bedard just did it. Celebrini just did it. Is that people are starting to get in the habit of, well, we want these plug and play #1 centers. And I'm not sure that's what James Hagens is, but he's still probably the most dynamic offensive player in this draft. He plays the middle of the ice. I think that this is going to be a really strong opportunity for him with the USA team jersey on again, which he loves to play with, to come out there and reestablish himself as the consensus first overall pick. Now, when I originally thought this was going to happen early on in the year, in the fall there, is that I didn't expect Matthew Schaefer to be on this team. Someone asked me it back in like August at the Holinka, do you think he could be the World Juniors? I was like, Skill-wise, absolutely, but I didn't think the Brass would even take him because of how young he is, especially over a kid like Zane Parekh. Now Schaefer's going to be there, and now he's going to have the opportunity, by the looks of it in these pre-tournament games, that he's going to get a ton of ice as well, and prime ice is that now they get to go head-to-head. Now they both have a chance to kind of, at the very least, battle for one, but maybe separate themselves from a Misa and a Martone or a Roger McQueen. So huge tournament when it comes to Hagens, but he's going to have all the opportunities to stand out and shine, playing in that top line role, seeing top power play minutes, and very likely going very deep into the tournament too.
Yeah, and that's it's going to be really fascinating to follow. Obviously, the expectations are incredibly high, and really Team USA needs James Hagens to be that dominant player that we've seen him be in the international tournaments before. As you mentioned, all time, greatest single tournament scoring at U17 challenge, at the under 18 world championship last year, single tournament scoring record, beating Nikita Kucherov, like all these different things. He's got all these accolades, but he's got one gold medal so far, two. Well, they won the U17s as well, but he's got one gold medal at the IIHF level, had the silver in the last under 18 worlds, and didn't get a chance to play for Team USA at the World Juniors last year. Was a late cut in the process of that whole thing. Mm-hmm. But obviously now it's his team and it's his chance to really make a statement here. With James Hagens, I think there's a couple of things. We'll talk about strengths and weaknesses. And I want to start with the weaknesses for Team USA, because I think that there's a couple of things that are notable here. And on my list, as we were kind of preparing for the show, I was trying to think of the different things that really stand out to me. And there's a couple. One is defensive depth. Now, there was a surprising cut. We haven't had a show since Team USA finalized its roster. Their last 4 cuts, EJ Emery was among them, a first-round draft pick of the New York Rangers. That one was the biggest surprise to me in terms of who ended up making the team. Now USA has a very inexperienced blue line, with the exception of having, you've got Zeev Buium and Drew Fortescue, who were on the team last year, Aaron Manetian, who was a reserve on the team last year, and then, guys like Cole Hudson that have played in multiple under 18 world championships, and things like that. But you have Adam Kleber, who's the highest level of international hockey he's played is the Linka Gretzky Cup. Colin Ralph, who's never played internationally either, and so you've got a few players like that now are all of a sudden in these roles in a situation where you're really not sure what they're going to be. So as you look at Team USA's blue line, what do you see, Cam? And I have one other weakness that I didn't put on our rundown, but I also want to talk about a little bit as well. But as you look at that D-core, how do you feel about it? And do you feel like there's maybe something missing? Because I am having a hard time of figuring out what is that configuration going to look like. We saw a pre-tournament game, and Kleber was in the top 4. There was a lot of different things that could potentially move around. But I mean, just as you look at it, what do you think of that blue line? And is that a potential trouble spot for USA, or am I just being too negative?
What I think is missing is EJ Emery. That's what I think is missing. I mean, you mentioned all those players. Some have experience, some don't. And we didn't say Logan Hensler, right? And the draft eligible, the 2025 kid who's playing in the NCAA this year. We saw him last year at the U18s. We saw him all last year too as a draft -1 player playing with the NTDP. Early on in the year, I thought, "Oh boy, look at this kid. He could be a top 10 pick." At that USHL Fall Classic in the fall of 23. And then throughout the season, and then even this year too, at U18s last year, it seems stagnant. The development seems stagnant. So for them to choose him over EJ Emery, who has the experience internationally as well, he's like, his ability to defend the rush is so strong. His ability to surf across the neutral zone and cut off lanes, cut off paths for players to enter the zone. And he's big and he's rangy and he skates well and he can move the puck. He doesn't have a ton of offense, but that's a big miss for me. And so if he was healthy and didn't make that team just on merit alone, it surprised me to see that. And I think I think you're right. I think that their blue line is probably their weak spot. Now, the fortunate thing for them is they got Zeev Buium, right? So they can roll him out there 28, 30 minutes a night, and that's half your game with Buium on the ice. And that's going to mitigate some of the damage. But he does have to go to the bench, right? And so that's when those second and third waves of offense from a team like Canada, when you're in the medal rounds, they can expose some of those weaknesses, I think, with some of their speed and some of the skill that they have down the lineup. So I think you're absolutely right. That's probably, if we're looking to focus in on a potential weak spot, that'd be on the blue line.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it is like it's not a blue line that you can't compete with because it's a big
No.
group. It's pretty mobile.
Yep.
It's not very offensive outside of Booyam and Hudson. There's not a lot of like you look at those guys, not a lot of them have points. Most of them don't have goals this
Mm.
year in college hockey. And so you're like, where's that if you're worried about secondary offense, that's the next thing. So, we'll have to see exactly where that goes. But the other thing about Emery too, you've got Cole Hudson, who's a bit of a wild card in terms of how he's going to move around the ice. And EJ Emery played with him at the Under-18 World Championship last year. Even though Team USA lost in that gold medal game, that pairing was absolutely incredible in that gold medal game, especially Emery defensively in that one. So, to not have that is interesting. And so like that was the biggest surprise to me of any of USA's roster decisions. And we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But the other spot that I did want to talk about was after James Hagens, Danny Nelson, Oliver Moore, Kerry Terrance. Those are your centers after James Hagens. The big thing for me, you look last year, it was like Frank Nazar. It was some of these guys that have a little bit more offensive. It was Will Smith. That was
Yeah,
basically their
there's Will
second or
Smith.
third
Yeah.
line was Will Smith with
Yeah.
those guys. So I am concerned as well a little bit about the center depth, not because all those players can play, but do you have a play driver there outside of James Hagens? I think the answer is no, which is that going to be a problem? What do you think?
I was going to bring up depth scoring secondary waves of skilled offense, but
Yes.
I do like Oliver Moore. He is
Me
not,
too.
he's got the dynamic feet, right? Super dynamic. He's about a point a game player in the NCAA that last year, and a little below that last year, a little below it this year, but about that. But his speed, right, creates mismatches. But then you throw in Cole Iserman, right? He's now on that second line wing. He's a complete X factor as far as I'm concerned, because if that kid gets hot, there's a real chance that he could just put up, 9 or 10 goals over 7 games, right? From your second power play unit, maybe, and your second line. Maybe he's on that top unit as the finisher, but he's kind of that wild card that could really make or break that team, because if he's not going, then it's like that top line has to do everything. Where last year, you're right, it was McGroarty, it was Cutter Gauthier up on that top line, and then, oh, hey, look, it's the triplets out of BC bringing it on the second wave too, right? So they don't have that necessarily, but they have an opportunity to. And I don't think it's Danny Nelson. Now, he might end up getting that role as a second line center, but he's not going to be a serious producer for them. So yeah, it'll be, I think Cole Iserman, a lot of weight is going to be put on his shoulders. And if his shot's going, it's going. But if it's not, you can see the confidence gets low and he starts to second guess himself and fire pucks from bad angles and things like that. So he'll be one to watch, especially early on in the round robin, I think.
Yeah, no question about it. And I think that's such a good point too about you don't want to turn into a one-line team. And if, I don't think there is a group that can really shut down Perreault, Leonard, and Hagens consistently. But if they're not going, you need something else. And I think, if it's Danny Nelson, if it's Oliver Moore, we've also seen Trevor Connolly in that top 6 as well. Trevor Connolly can be a play driver, but you're also asking a lot of your center to kind of take on more defensive burden when you've got a Connolly and a Iserman that are more offensive minded. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that whole dynamic plays out. I do like the way Team USA is structuring their fourth line, with Brandon Svoboda, and then you've got Austin Bernovic as well, who's 6'4" and can score, and then Terrance being the number 4 center, potentially as a guy and one of your top penalty killers. Like, I think USA's got some great PK guys, Moore, Nelson, Terrance. I mean, if you want to have Leonard out there, they have a lot of different guys, Svoboda, players that can play on the PK for you. So I like that about them. I would say that, USA, in terms of the chances of going back to back, it's going to rest largely on the top line, because the strengths of this team are the top line, and then it's their goaltending, and obviously you have a great number 1 defenseman. So I think having a top line with Hagens, Leonard, and Perreault, and then having a number 1 goalie like Augustine, to me, this team is going to live and die with how Augustine plays. And as I mentioned, he's playing some of the most consistent hockey that we've seen from him. So I do want to move on to Canada, because it's an interesting team. It's an exciting team. It's kind of a weird team if you look at it up and down. Like it's like, what is the identity of this team really going to be? They had a tight game with Sweden in their pre-tournament. So just kind of getting to learn more about this team, and it's got this interesting dynamic to it. So what are some of the things, as you look at that roster, as you look at their outlook, what are some of the things for you, Cam, that really look like are the things that stand out to you about this team? What are the things that you feel are you either unique or interesting about this team, or the things that you're paying most attention to when it comes to Team Canada?
It's going to be the skill level, right? It's so they still have loads of skill despite some of the players they left behind, but will it be enough? Will it be enough to generate enough offense to really push your way through the quarters, through the semis, and into that gold medal game? And I think they have the horses to do it. It's just a matter of them putting it all together on this, in a short window. So that top line, right? Really interesting to me. Cal Ritchie, I think, being the number one center on this team, having experience in the NHL, he's an exquisite playmaker, right? He's a high end distributor. I think he's got, averaging like 1.5 a game there too in the O. Really strong player. So him with Bradley Nadeau, pure finisher who's playing the AHL. And then Easton Cowan, the Maple Leafs prospect, who, he's riding the 1,000-game point streak right now. So there's a lot of jam, there's a lot of skill, and there's some finesse kind of mixed into that line. And then that second line, right? Is it Gavin McKenna? Do they unshackle him? Do they put him right out there? He'll be on that second line to start out with. That's fine. Playing with Berkeley Catton, that's a good spot to be. Those are two highly skilled players. Catton, he's a playmaker, but he also knows how to finish, right? He's a big time finisher too. And so, you get, whether it's Porter Martone or Luca Pinelli or whoever is on that other side, their top six has the talent to drive enough offense to do it. But you probably could have looked at that Canadian team last year and been on paper, you can be like, that team, despite the guys they left at home, still has enough offense to get it done. And they didn't get it done, right? They were relying on Macklin Celebrini to do everything, and he couldn't drag them kicking and screaming out of the quarterfinals. So will Cal Ritchie or Easton Cowan or Gavin McKenna, will they be able to pull this team into that spot? I think that's kind of the biggest question for me. And the blue line. The blue line too, because it's, we talked about the blue line for America there, is that, Matthew Schaefer is going to have a big role in this team. Tanner Molendyke's going to have a big role on this team. But it's an interesting group. So Minio is there to just kind of clear things out. Andrew Gibson is there to just kind of clear things out of the net front and retrieve pucks and rim them around and stuff like that. So is there enough playmaking? Is there enough juice for guys to get up there, rush the puck, create mismatches, and join the rush and fill in lanes and stuff like that? So I'm really curious to see if they have basically enough offense to get it done.
Yeah, and it seems to be that question every year as you structure your lineup, as you make decisions. Is there enough there? And always on paper, you're saying if Canada should never be one of the teams that struggles to score. They have all the best, so many of the best skill players, guys like Ritchie, Nadeau, others. Those are guys that need to really step up. Now, the other guy that we're all going to be watching, and certainly the guy that I think is going to be potentially an X factor in terms of, we don't know exactly what his usage is going to be. We don't know exactly, how short the leash is going to be. But you and I were both there and saw Gavin McKenna absolutely torch the under-18 World Championship. We have seen him torch the WHL this season. We have seen him take step after step after step and just continue to excel. Now he's in this situation with Team Canada where we know that sometimes the younger players need to do a little bit more to earn it. They need to do a little bit more to get the run. This is a guy that's really proven it at every step. Do you think he's going to be given enough run on this roster, or is he going to force his way into that, Cam? I mean, that's the real interesting thing, is will he give Dave Cameron no choice but to throw him over the boards as much as they have to? So that's the question I have. What do you think about Gavin McKenna's outlook? 2026 top prospect, a guy that everyone will be talking about from now until that 2026 NHL draft.
I mean, he's a star level talent. So on pure talent alone, he is the most talented player on that team. So in that early pre-tournament action there, it was looking like he was going to be like the 13th or 14th forward to start the event. You'd see power play time still in that second unit, but it looked like it was, but now he's been, the last couple games, he's been run out there as the second line left winger. You could flip him and Nadeau. You could put him up on that top line too. But I do think just watching those games, it's just so obvious how intelligent he is too, right? Like he's not just skillful, he's incredibly talented with his mind and how he perceives things on the ice and how he makes decisions. Like he was breaking down a play after the game. I don't know if you saw that, and how he recognized that the defender's heels were pointing the wrong way. So he went against the grain on his heels, and this didn't have enough room as he got boxed out by the other defender to make he couldn't wait a half second longer to make the pass for the tap and open net. But just the processing speed, like it boggles my mind. When we're out there playing, I'm like, oh God, don't fumble this. Don't have the puck just blow up off my stick like a grenade. Get it on net. This kid's out here watching heels and going against it. So I think that he is so talented that he will force his way into having the shackles taken off, and that they'll just run him out there. And that is going to provide him with some excellent opportunities to put up a lot of points. And we'll get into some of those records that he could be sniffing this year too.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Gavin McKenna and the things that he can potentially bring to the table a little bit later in the show. But I do want to talk a little bit about, and I think a lot of what you said there was spot on too, in terms of everything. It's just a matter to me, Dave Cameron, former NHL coach, old school coach. He's been at this level before. No frills kind of guy, at least, publicly, but is he going to give that player a chance to shine? I think that really anybody that's on that staff will be screaming, get him on the ice as much as you possibly can, because he can do the job. And I think he will. I think this team for Canada, you think about the strengths, they are going to be among the deepest teams. We've said, hey, maybe they don't have necessarily the high end scoring, but they are among the, probably the deepest team. They've got, good. They could be physical. They can be a heavier team. You're thinking about guys like Cole Baudouin and Andrew Gibson and guys that are going to make it a little bit. You're going to know that they're playing, and like even guys like Easton Cowan, who is that high end skill guy, but he's going to give you trouble with his motor, his forechecking ability, getting up on the wall. He'll dig pucks out. So there's a lot of things there. But as we discuss every single year, Cam, every single year when it comes to Team Canada, it's all about the goalies. And so Carson Bjarnason, you've got Carter George, you've got Jack Ivankovic, the underager. Who ultimately do you think should get the reins here? Who do you think will get the reins here? And really, is this still the situation where we're like, compared to Trey Augustine and Team USA, there's not a real good comparison, but compared to the field, it could be all right. So, what are your thoughts on Canada's goaltending, which is always one of the big hot topics as Canada plays at the World Juniors?
If I'm handicapping it, Canada is probably, fourth, fifth probably for goaltending. Like that, you would look at it and be like, okay, like there's four other teams that feel better about their netminders than Canada does. And that's USA, that's Finland, that's Sweden, and that's Czechia. And so I don't know who is going to get the starter's role. I think they're basically going to start Bjarnason and Carter George and give them both a look, and then see who wins, and then ride that hot hand, right? You got to get them both action in round robin play, so that when inevitably one guy gets in trouble, you can put someone else in the medal rounds. But Jack Ivankovic got us, he saw 2 periods of action, I believe 2 periods against Sweden there. Wasn't great, it was fine. I don't expect him to see ice. Like, I'm not sure. I thought they fully brought him there just to be the third wheel and get some experience, because they were pegging him to be the guy next year or the year after. And that's why they brought him over, Bratskov, who was on the team last year. And so a returnee got cut. But it's not pretty. It's not. They're going to have to win by committee, and that means they're going to either have to really tee it up and like squeeze it defensively and keep the pucks out of the middle of the ice, or they're going to have to run and gun and outscore their opponents in kind of that fire wagon hockey. With Dave Cameron at the helm, you got to imagine it's going to be a little more stifling, and that's probably why he picked the team he did. Is that he's like, we're going to have to play strong defensively. And we haven't even mentioned Jet Luchenko, right? NHL experience, probably going to be playing third or fourth C, and another one who's going to kill penalties and going to have all those details to his game. So they have the personnel to play 2-1 hockey, 3-2 hockey, but they're going to still need some big stops when it gets going down there, especially when you're playing a team like USA with that top line, or, Sweden's got some gunslingers too. They're going to need a stop here and there, and that has been a big problem for Canada, and I expect it's going to probably rear its ugly head again this tournament too.
Yeah, we will certainly see where things go. I think, Bjarnason, he's got the size advantage. George has a good international experience. There's a lot of things there. He won a gold at the under-18s last year, and it seems like, they want to rely on those guys. But yeah, I mean, the other thing that, before we move on is, Canada is also going to have, in addition to having the 2026 draft eligible, we've talked a little bit about Matthew Schaefer and Porter Martone. So the two of the top 2025 guys. We talked a lot about James Hagens. I do want to spend a little time talking about both Martone and Schaefer before we move on. It seems like Schaefer is inching his way into the top 4 here for Canada. It seems like Sam Dickinson could be playing down the lineup for this team. This is a guy that was a high pick. He's one of the top scoring defensemen in the Canadian Hockey League. And right now we're looking at a Matthew Schaefer who is, 10 days shy of not being eligible for this year's draft, potentially being a top 4 defenseman here. If that does happen, and he is playing a top 4 role, he's on their, first or second power play unit. It's going to be pretty hard to keep down the number 1 talk about Matthew Schaefer, is it not?
Oh yeah, right. Like he's like, I believe the U18 record for Canadian defensemen is 7 points in a tournament. You give Matthew Schaefer 7 games on the top power play unit, he's going to break that. Like he's going to set a new record for Canada in that regard. I think the all-time record might be 11 too. So this kid's got an opportunity, right? He's got a great opportunity, and he's earned it through terrific international play. The Holinka, even fighting through the mono and coming back and clicking above a point per game in the O. He is so talented. We talked about the intelligence level of some of these guys, and of McKenna, and his intelligence level is so high. And those two played off each other so much at the Holinka. Like, I swear, McKenna was, instead of looking for Cameron Schmidt down the wing, he had eyes in the back of his head, turning around, looking back. Where's Schaefer? I'm going to give it to him, and then we can work a little give and go. So skill recognizes skill, and those two players, I think, are going to have a lot of fun together too. So it's a great opportunity, as I mentioned earlier in the show, for Schaefer to go head to head with Hagens. It's not just going to be Hagens who has the opportunity to elevate his game, and not to discount Porter Martone either. Is that right now he's looking like he's going to probably be on that third line, but I think that there's a very real chance that he could move up and play on that second line with McKenna and Berkeley Catton. It makes a lot of sense to have that bigger body over there to bang and crash. And when he wears the maple leaf, like when he captained the U18 teams when we were in Finland, he was excellent, right? He played hard in all 3 zones, something we don't always see in Brampton with his game. He can sometimes take some shifts off and just kind of look a little like he's out there for a skate, and then bam, he's got himself 3 points. But he puts together a complete game when he's playing internationally for Canada. And so I do think that he's got another opportunity to really elevate his stock too, because he's such a unique player in this draft class as well too. So all 3 of the draft eligible kids at the top of the pile here have great opportunities. Martone's going to have to work the hardest, I think. But Schaefer, again, right, if Hagens struggles, maybe loses that 1C spot with USA, and Schaefer has a great tournament on the top power play, he might solidify himself as kind of the consensus number 1 in the public mind anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I think is, like, we might come out of this World Junior Championship with less of a clear picture, because what happens if they're all great? What happens if they're all, which is totally possible, that all these guys are going to play and punch above their weight and be significant contributors. And I think that's probably the best case scenario for us as draft guys. We want that mystery. We want that. Who is it going to be? And it feels more like that now. I think when we go look back at the Shane Wright draft, there was a lot of, it only started around this time then that he was, maybe not, maybe he's not going to go number 1. But, thinking back to the Nico Hischier, Nolan Patrick draft as well, Hischier really separated himself at the World Junior Championship. And that, to me, it was when he solidified his stock as being the number 1 guy that year. So this is a very critical week for those players. Cannot wait to watch them. But we've got a lot more teams to talk about, Cam. We've got other teams that are in this tournament. USA and Canada. I'm in the US. You're in Canada. Those are the teams that I know that most of our listeners are going to care about. But there's no doubt in my mind that if there's a number, if you're a Canada fan or if you're a USA fan, odds are the number 3 team you want to know about is Sweden. And the Swedes fell short last year, go to the gold medal game on home ice. Unfortunately for them, fell apart in the third period against Team USA. There was a melee. There was all sorts of things. It didn't go great. A lot of guys back from that team, including a trio of defensemen: Axel Sandin Pellikka, Theo Lindstein, and Tom Olander. Otto Stenberg is going to be a critical forward for them. So there's a lot of real talent on this Swedish roster. We're not gonna spend as much time talking about Sweden as we did for Canada and the U.S. Only because we got places to be, we got things to do. It's the holiday season, we got to get going. But this Swedish team definitely, to me, looks like they're at least going to have a chance to contend for gold, because they do. But for whatever reason, at this tournament, they have had such a hard time getting over the hump. And what are the things that you think are standing in their way of potentially, getting back into the gold medal race here? What are the things that you're noticing as you look at their roster? And by the way, before you answer, Cam, quick plug for Elite Prospects as well. One of the great ways to kind of take a look at these rosters and see how these players are doing is by going on to EP, and they've got their World Junior section. Lots of great stats and different ways to kind of look at things, and you'll see things like, hey, Axel Sandin Pellikka he's been on one at the World Juniors the last 2 times he's gone. So there's a lot to learn about this team. But Cam, getting back to the initial question, what is standing in the way of this Swedish team potentially winning a gold medal here? It's been very elusive for this country at this tournament.
Yeah, I'll just say I've literally got the Elite Prospects WJC page up there, and I clicked back to last year's tournament just to be like, oh yeah, we saw that, who was there scoring? Yeah, it's great stuff over there. But so for Sweden, what is it? 1 gold in like 46 years, 42 years, and that was back in 2012. They have a very hard time. When I thought they had it last year on home ice, everything was kind of working for them. But the biggest question mark for me, and it's obvious, right, is scoring, right? Is they lost Jonathan Lekirmäki, Noah Usland, Liam Ugrin, right? These like high offensive players who played all the fun minutes. Lekirmäki was the MVP last tournament. It's going to have to be scoring by committee. It's going to have to be Axel Sandin Pellikka really driving things, which is why Z Bouillon is my pick for top defender, because I don't think ASP can do it all by himself. And that's not trying to rip on Otto Stenberg or some of the Victor Eklund, a really high-end 2025 kid who could go, maybe in that 6 or 7 spot this year. So they have some talent. Felix Ungersorum, I'm a big fan of, but he's more of a details guy. He's going to be playing in a top role, but I just don't see that electric. Lekirmäki just had that one-shot goal scoring ability that he could just break open a game, and they don't really have that player now. So that's going to be tough for them. But they have the weaker side of the pool. They've got Slovakia, they got Czechia over there, so it's not going to be a cakewalk. But they probably don't have like a serious challenge until the semis, unless something funky goes on the other side for that crossover in the quarters. So they'll have some time to work things out and try to find their identity. And I think Melker Thalen in net is strong. Like he could arguably be like the second goaltender at this event. Like he could be putting up some big numbers for them as they play kind of that lockdown system. Can Tom Wielander, can he be like a really impactful player? Because he's really strong defensively. He's got the great wheels. He's starting to put up some decent points in the NCAA, but does he kind of step that up and be more of a driver offensively for them? Because I think they could use that from their second pair, not just him shutting things down. So it's going to be a unique team. I don't think they have the high-end offense to get her done, but I think that they can make some noise as they always do and push into the medal round. And maybe it's a silver, maybe it's a bronze, but we'll see. They're going to be in the mix.
Yeah, one thing that Sweden has clearly decided with this roster is they are going to be old. They have 4 18-year-olds on their roster total. The rest are 19-year-olds. So they wanted a more experienced team. They are getting that. You talked about Ungersorum. That's a guy playing the AHL. That they have Wahlberg, who's also playing in the AHL. A number of their players have spent time in the SHL. So they're playing at a level that should prepare them for what's coming. And you've got guys like David Edstrom that has size. Wahlberg has size. So this is a team that's going to be a little bit bigger than your normal Swedish team as well in terms of their overall size. But then you've got that three-headed monster on the back end where I think we'll see Wielander and Lindstein playing together a lot in this tournament. That gives Sandin Pellikka an opportunity to kind of go and do his thing. And then if they need to get the goaltending, I think it's, between Thalen and Gidloff and I think Melvin Strahl will be there as well from the Youngstown Phantoms, which you of course can see on FloHockey on USHL. But I think that this is a team to me that, when we think about what their actual hopes are, they're really going to be pinned on how that defense plays, how if they're getting the goaltending, because while I agree with you, I don't think that the scoring is going to be dynamic. They don't have that. I think they're gonna have a chance to score a fair amount. And if that offense gets cooking in the weaker side of the bracket, then all of a sudden that maybe changes the dynamic for that team as well. So a lot of different things that could potentially happen there. The one last thing I'll bring up that, playing on the weaker side of the bracket has been fairly typical for Sweden. And I think that's been part of the problem. They don't get tested early enough in the tournament. Nobody punches them in the mouth early enough in the tournament. And when they do get punched in the mouth, they don't know how to react. And that's been the thing that has been, kind of tough for them over the years. So I am fascinated by Swedish hockey in general. I think it's the players they generate are incredible. But we have still not seen tremendous team success at the international level. That includes the under-18 Worlds. That includes at the World Juniors. We see it a little bit more at the men's senior level. Obviously, they've won a couple Olympics over the years, and they've also won plenty of men's World Championships. But this has been the event that just they cannot seem to get over the hump. But before we move on from Sweden, there is one draft eligible player that we will all be watching very closely, a guy that we expected to make the team, and a guy that, quite frankly, is going to have to potentially make an impact, could be part of that secondary scoring that Sweden's going to need, and that is Victor Eklund. I mean, we obviously follow the draft all year long. First time I saw him, live was at the under-18 Worlds last year. But what if, and I guess at the Five Nations before that, but what are the things that you notice about him? What should NHL fans be watching from Eklund or paying attention to, as they kind of get ready for next year's draft as well?
Highly skilled kid, right? Highly skilled player, has a lot of intensity to his game. We saw the other day there throw a little jujitsu move onto a player when they're getting into a skirmish after the whistle. So he's not afraid of pushing against bigger, stronger opponents and having that pushback because he's targeted. Playing in the Hockey Allsvenskan this year, the second tier in Sweden, putting up good points, has had some like standout breakout games. I mean, one last month where he scored at least a couple of goals, including the tying one, put up 3 points. It was all over the ice. I think he had like 10 shots on goal, like 14 attempts. Like he can be a standout player playing in a men's pro league and in a top league over there. So sliding him into this club, he is young. He'll have to, as you said, it's a very old team. He's going to have to prove himself and get up the lineup. But I do think he's another one that has a bit of that kind of wild card to his game, is that he has so much skill. And if he can flash it down the lineup, opportunities will increase and the coaching staff will have to feed him a little bit more. But he's going to be a really interesting one because of all the draft eligibles that are here. He probably has the toughest mountain to climb to get into like a really key spot and prove that he's a top 10 pick in this draft. But I do think it's possible just because Sweden lacks kind of that dynamic offense. And he has a lot of dynamic offensive skills to his game. He just happens to be the youngest player on the team too.
Yeah. So and I think that's all well said, because he is going to be like, that's the thing is sometimes I remember Axel Sandin Pellikka in his first World Junior, he was the 7th defenseman. And then by game 2, he was running the top power play. Like it's weird how it happens sometimes and you never know. But if you seize the opportunity, these coaches have proven it's too short of a tournament not to take that, like they need to make those adjustments. So if you prove that you can do it, then you have to do it. All right, let's talk a little bit about Finland. Finland lost in the bronze medal game last year. They are traditionally, not going to match skill on skill with Sweden, USA, Canada, previously Russia when they were in the tournament. They're not anymore, not for now. So this team, I think, will follow that same mold. The question is do they have enough else to get them through? Some of the key players on this team, Konsta Helenius, he's been playing for the Rochester Americans in the AHL. Aaron Kiviharju was just named captain, Minnesota Wild draft pick. This will be he's been one of the top young players in Finland for many years. But fell to the 4th round in the draft last year. They've got enough, their goaltending is top to bottom going to be a key part for them. I think all of their goalies have a real chance to make an impact. But Petteri Rimpinen is a guy that was in kind of has been in some of these situations before. So let's talk a little bit about Finland. I mean, what are the things that stand out to you about this team? I mean, is there, I feel like maybe we're sleeping on them, but maybe we're not. Like, I mean, you and I have seen the roster. They do have guys like Emil Hemming, Kasper Haltunen. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are a number of players that they'll stack up well with other teams, but so sometimes I just wonder, are we sleeping too much on Finland because we saw them struggle last year as they did?
I don't think so. I think that they are, quite frankly, they're a nation on kind of a downward slope with their impact internationally, and that's kind of funneling its way up at the U17, at the U18. We're seeing this draft class is really underwhelming for the Finns. They do have some players up there playing at this top level, like you mentioned, some of those guys, Haltunen and Miettinen. Thomas Urinen's having a good year in the CHL as well. So they do have some players, but I just think that they're going to have to be such a cohesive group and such a tight system group and have great goaltending, which they could do, right? They could have like really high end goaltending. Like Rimpinen has got like a .916 save percentage in the Liga as a U19 or a U20. Most of the goaltenders ahead of him on that all time list all turned out to be NHLers. It's Kari Lehtinen, it's Tuukka Rask, it's Jussi Saros. It's a who's who of future NHLers, and this guy's kind of putting up similar levels. Metrics at the same age. So he could steal them some games, but it's going to be an uphill battle, I think, especially because of the side of the bracket they're on, is that you can basically pencil them in at number 3. So they're crossing over to play that 2 team. It'll be interesting to see how they do, if they can manage to score themselves into a position to maybe look for a medal. But I imagine this is probably going to be a tougher tournament for them on the gold sheet.
Yeah, and I think I'm with you. And you mentioned it. Like, this year's draft class in Finland might be one of the weakest we've ever seen. At least as long as I've been doing it. And so the question is this a downward trend? Now, there are guys like, I think Konsta Helenius at his best can change a game. But you need more than that. You need more than that. And that's the thing, is I think Finland has potential. If they play within their structure, if they make it difficult to get through the neutral zone, if they clog up the middle of the ice, as they've often done so well over the years, that gives them a chance. They also open the tournament against Canada. So get ready right away. We're going to learn about this team right away. And then they have to, kind of get back ramped up and they got to play USA. They got all these tough games. So Finland it's not going to be easy for them going into this tournament, but it is going to be really fun to follow, because I think that they have enough there to be competitive, to keep other teams honest. And we'll see. I also think this D-core, a lot of question marks on that group. I think there are some players that can really play. Kivi Harju is going to play a lot, but yeah, I mean, there's a lot of questions there. The team that I think will challenge them once again and challenge everybody to potentially be a medal team at this tournament is Czechia. Now, they don't necessarily have the depth that they've had over the last couple of years, but they do have an intriguing goalie in Michael Hrabal. They have Edward Shala coming back. He was not great at the World Juniors last year, but he's been playing very well in the AHL, or probably above where I thought he would be playing at this point in the AHL with Coachella Valley. But do the Czechs have enough to medal here? Do they have enough to push it forward? Is there going to be enough scoring? Is the goaltending good enough? I mean, Hrabal at his best can steal a game, but we've also seen him play well past his best, not close to his best, and that has not, when that happens, then you're in big trouble. So my question to you is, I mean, do they have the ability to challenge at least some of these other big teams can?
Maybe if they brought all their best players, that could have helped. Hey, that could have helped. I could feel a little more confident. I'd feel a little more confident with Dominik Badinka as their number 1 defender instead of not being on the team. I'd feel pretty good about having Ratim Murtka, 6'6", smashing guys on the blue line. I don't care if he's draft eligible. He's one of the top 6 defensemen on that team. He's the top 4 defenseman on that team. I mean, Adam Manak, the kid, all he does is put up monster points internationally for them. Where's he? I know he's had a little bit of a struggle adapting to the USHL, but you're going to have a hard time convincing me that kid's skill level wouldn't be helping this team too. So I think that they've handcuffed themselves a little bit by not bringing the best players that they could, whether for political reasons with coach and player or GM and player or however it's breaking out. Is that there's some omissions there that are head scratching to say the least. But they do still have Edward Chalet, like you said, who is a highly skilled player. And now coming down to play at the junior level, should be able to create some stuff, should have some magic in him. Adam Novotny, I have a lot of time for this kid, 2026. I chatted with him the other day just to get ready for a story I'm going to do on the 2026 kids. Really, really, genuine person, but kind of mimics his game a little bit after Mason McTavish, kind of that power forward. And we know Mason McTavish had himself some fun World Junior experiences. I was telling him maybe you could copycat him too. So they're going to have some guys that can play. Jurasek on the blue line too, Adam Yeko. So they've got some guys that are going to be able to do some stuff, but I do think that they've handcuffed themselves, and it's going to be they should be number 2 on that side of the bracket. No, in all likelihood they should be, but it's not a foregone conclusion. So they've hurt themselves by leaving some guys behind, but they still do probably have enough skill and will, and if Harabel plays well enough to get into that quarters, and then who knows what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to watch. I think the Czechs, the last couple of years, they've medaled in the last 2 World Juniors. Pretty, it's a silver and a bronze. But again, how did they do that? With pretty solid defensive structure, with pretty solid blue lines. And so this year, they don't necessarily have all the horses, but we'll see it. Getting Adam Juracek healthy just in time for the World Juniors and getting him playing in the OHL as well has helped a lot, at least in terms of their outlook. But still, as you mentioned, Badinka not there, Mertka not there. So there's plenty of head scratchers. Now, to me, the big difference is Michael Harabel. If he can play a game stealing style, it gives him a chance. It gives him a chance against the Finlands and the Swedens in those one and done games. Maybe less so against USA and Canada, but we will wait and see. All right, we're going to wrap it up on our team by teams with Slovakia, and with all due respect to Germany, Latvia, Kazakhstan, Switzerland. Good luck to you all in the tournament. We look forward to watching you play in the event. But Slovakia, it's been a few years where they've had a growing program. They've been competitive. They've been, really intriguing at this event. Have put scares into people, but couldn't really get over the hump. This year, they've got, Dalibor Dvorsky is going to be back. Huge addition to get him back. Maxim Sturbak, who has been part of this team the last few years, he's back as well out of Michigan State. Oddly enough, the Slovakia is actually, outside of the U.S., the most USHL heavy team in this tournament. They have a ton of guys that are current USHL players or former USHL players in this event, including guys like Juraj Pekarczyk, Sturbak, who we mentioned. Luka Radivojevic is in there right now. He's a draft eligible to watch in this tournament. He played in the tournament last year. So there's a lot of guys that you can watch on FloHockey all the time because they are USHL players. But to put it bluntly, this Slovakian team outside of Dvorsky, do they have enough to contend and really not just with the Canadas and the USAs, but really the Sweden, Finland, Czechia. I mean, as you look at that roster, Cam, anything stand out to you in terms of maybe there's a chance, maybe something happens, maybe, things go the right way? I mean, it is hockey after all, and these are teenagers. I mean, I suppose anything can happen. What do you think about Slovakia?
I think that they have Dalibor Dvorsky, and he's there for his 4th event. I think he's just the 11th player ever to play 4 tournaments here, which is pretty crazy. So he has to be everything for them, right? It's going to be tough for them. They've got Sturbak, they've got Radivojevic, who's also, a draft eligible, who's kind of struggled a little bit to really dominate and show his stuff. But they have talent, and they're going to be another group that's going to be really cohesive, and they're going to have to play a tight system. They're going to have to win 2-1 games. They're going to have an upset like that where they just shut it down. They get really good goaltending and timely saves. And yeah, they could get into a semifinal matchup and then find themselves playing for a bronze medal or something like that. Am I betting on that? No, I'm not. So I imagine that they're going to be probably more playing in that 5th place game or that 7th place game. But, if Dvorsky can drag them kicking and screaming, they could find themselves pushing for a medal. But again, I think it's probably not the safe bet to expect it.
No, I think you're exactly right. And really, I think depth matters. And if you don't have depth, you have to have goaltending. And while they have decent goaltending, I don't think it's game stealing goaltending. Adam Guyon's not walking through that door again, as he did almost beat Canada 2 years ago. Now imagine the trajectory of so many different things in the World Juniors had that Connor Bedard World Junior ended in the quarterfinal as it could have. It went to overtime against Slovakia. And Slovakia has given a lot of teams fits over the years. But imagine, like, if they're in 3rd place in their bracket, there's a chance, they're probably playing USA or Canada in the quarterfinal. Yeah. And so you're all of a sudden you're like, whoa, this is not
Good luck.
ideal. So it's going to really be incumbent upon them to try to find a way to beat Czechs and see if they can get in that 2nd place. But even then, you get 2nd place, well, then you're probably playing Finland. So, like there's all these, it's
doable,
a tough road.
Kind of the path, though, right? Yeah,
exactly. So that's a tough road for Slovakia. So again, with all due respect to the other nations that we didn't get to highlight here, I think if you're an NHL fan, if you are a fan of international hockey, the 6 that we just talked about, very likely to be the teams that you will want to follow most closely at the World Juniors, the teams that have the best chance at the World Juniors. And if you stick around, we'll tell you which of those teams will actually medal at the World Juniors. And we'll see if we can get it 100% right, as we often strive to do. So anyway, with that said, we're going to move into our Beyond Belief segment, which, if you're new to the show, this is a segment where we read a statement to each other, and the other will decide whether it is a true statement or if it is beyond belief, as in no way that's possible. And it is all World Junior themed here. When we do it other times, it's about the NHL draft, it's about drafted prospects, it's about international hockey, college, junior, all that stuff. But today it is strictly about the World Junior Championship, and we're going to kick this one off. Cam, I'm going to let you dive in on this one as I provide this bold statement to you. Gavin McKenna will outscore Connor Bedard's draft -1 year World Junior showing. And to remind the audience that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, 8 points in his this was in the restarted World Juniors, so 8 points. That was 4 goals, 4 assists in 7 games. That was in the August World Junior Championship. Bedard also, in the one that was canceled, did have 5 points in 2 games. But for the purposes of this, we are not including the canceled numbers because that would be crazy. But anyway, Cam, Gavin McKenna outscoring Connor Bedard's draft -1. Yes or no? Beyond belief?
Gavin McKenna will outscore Connor Bedard's draft -1 scoring mark. Okay, 8 points in 7 games is highly attainable for a player like McKenna. I think that he's going to have the opportunities. Now, he's not going to touch Wayne Gretzky's 17, whatever he did when he was a draft -1, but I think it was like Gretzky 17, Mario put up 10, Bedard put up 8. Sidney Crosby only had 5. So it's like, if he doesn't, it's not a shock. But I'm going to say Gavin McKenna goes out there and produces more than 8 points at this year's tournament and bests his cousin through marriage's mark that he produced a few years back there.
I feel like that got debunked, but who knows? Yeah, it was like some tangential relationship. Yeah. So, but I mean, I'm not gonna fight you on that. I think the other thing that helps is that you're going to have games against Latvia and Germany. Those are opportunities for compiling points. It's also the opportunity where the younger guys get a little more run. The older guys get to sit back a little bit. I think it's going to be those opportunities to prove it. But I think even in games where they're playing against top competition, Gavin McKenna is going to be a top scorer. All right. Throwing it back to you, my friend.
All right, I got one for you here. Axel Sandin Pellikka will win defenseman of the tournament for a 2nd consecutive year.
Well, I think it's beyond belief, and I got to steal your answer from earlier today. I think that part of the reason that it's going to be tougher for Axel Sandin Pellikka to produce at the level is because he's going to be playing a variety of roles where it's just like, hey, you're going to be out there a lot. You're going to have to defend. You're going to have to, you're going to be under duress. Do we have enough guys to get the puck to that you're going to put up the assists? And so I think that while the points are probably still going to be there, I don't think that that's a problem. I don't know that he is going to be, and I don't know that Sweden's path is going to be so challenging in that he's basically going to have to win that award in the quarterfinal and semifinal in order to really make noise. Whereas I think because of the, and the other thing you have to remember is how these things get voted on and all those different things. So the tournament directorate is the one that picks the defenseman of the tournament. And then there's also the all-star team, which is picked by the media, two different things. But I just think you look at, on the other side of the bracket, we've talked about Zeev Buium. I think we're both in agreement that we think he's going to play, 27, 28 minutes. Plus, he's got guys to get the puck to. Plus, he's going to be on the first power play. Plus, there's all those different things. So, for me, it's all about Zeev Buium more. I think he's well positioned to be that guy. Though I will say, I think Axel Sandin Pellikka is going to contend, but I think it's beyond belief that he will win this year.
I like it.
All right. Now, here's a fun one. This doesn't actually count, but I want to ask you, Easton Cowan, his current point streak in the OHL, let's just say that it does translate over to the World Junior Championship. Will that point streak continue at the World Juniors? Meaning, will he have a point in every game Canada plays at this tournament? Cam Robinson, I leave this to you. Is it gonna happen, or is that beyond belief?
I'm going to say it's beyond belief that Easton Cowan's point streak continues through the World Juniors. And this might just be a little bit of PTSD from last year's tournament where it took him forever to get a point on that Canadian team. And the Maple Leafs fans were quick to, or the Montreal Canadian fans were probably quicker to point it out on social media. So I don't expect that he will put up a point every single game just because I have that vision of him struggling to get on the board last year. It took 4 or 5 games before he even got on the board. So no, I will say that one is beyond belief.
All right. And I agree with you, mainly because I think that sometimes we discount just how difficult this tournament is, even without Russia in it, which definitely changes the dynamic. It is so hard to score in this tournament, and it is a quick tournament. You've got 7 games in 11 days. It is very difficult to do it. So I am with you on that one, my friend. All right. I turn it back over to you.
Okay. Beyond belief. One of Sweden, USA, or Canada will not medal. Beyond belief or true?
I've been giving this one a lot of thought. And I'm going to say that it is going to happen. One of those teams will not medal at this tournament. Now, I will say all 3 of these teams, to me, are far and away the best teams on paper. I think that Sweden has a great opportunity. I think any one of these teams, if they end up in the bronze medal game, is going to really struggle to get up for that game. I think that's the thing. Like, basically, that's what happens is you need to have the mental fortitude to come immediately after a loss, playing the afternoon following your World Junior dreams being crushed, and then try to medal at this tournament. And I think for each of these teams, anything less than gold is a disappointment, and it'll be really difficult for this team. And I think if you're USA and you don't make the gold medal game, you're going to be pretty dejected, and that just leaves you open and vulnerable. And the teams like Finland, Slovakia, Czechia, even though they're not as deep, they can seize on those opportunities because they're hungrier for that medal. They want that medal. So that to me is why that is a true statement that one of Sweden, USA, or Canada will leave empty-handed from this tournament.
I totally agree that it's so hard for them to get it up for a bronze medal game, but I'm going to say that they're going to have enough juice, whoever it is, to just almost zombify their way through it and get it done. So I'm going to say that one is beyond belief, that they all 3 will walk away with medals, which I guess now I've tipped my hand for predicting who's medaling at this event. Hey, I painted myself into a corner. I have my medal.
You have. I'm going to hold you to it because obviously I've done the exact opposite of that. Anything can happen, but we'll see. You never know. But and before we move on, that USA Sweden bronze medal game in Halifax is one of the greatest examples of teams not really caring until the third period, and then, oh wait, we might leave without a medal, and they turned it on. And Luke Hughes had a heck of a game. But yeah, lots of fun there. All right, our final beyond belief question, or statement, I should say. Matthew Schaefer will outshine Gavin McKenna in scouts' minds. Is that true? Is that beyond belief?
Gosh, right? I'm going to say it's true. I'm going to say it's true just because of where he's starting on the depth chart. Starting, with Oliver Bonk on that second pair and getting top power play opportunities is going to set Matthew Schaefer up to have a huge tournament. And the pressure's not on McKenna as much as it is on Schaefer as in a draft year, right? McKenna can show up next year and put up 20 points if he wants to. So I'll lean that is a true statement. Matthew Schaefer will outshine Gavin McKenna on the world stage.
I'm gonna say it's beyond belief, only because we've now seen these guys in tournaments together. That under 18 world championship is just right in the back of my mind. I know we're way far removed from it. We're way far removed from it, but still, Gavin McKenna, in that moment, I was like, okay, I believed the hype. I can't ignore that we're talking about just an insane special talent. So I'll say beyond belief, but I think the opportunity is what matters at this level for these players, because without opportunity, you don't get the chance to shine as brightly as some. All right.
I will say,
we're almost at the end of this show.
Tournament,
yeah, go for it. No, Cam, please bring this up.
At that U18 tournament, as an underager, I know Gavin McKenna was the best player, didn't get the MVP because we voted on it too early, but Schaefer was still on my ballot as the tournament's top defenseman. Above EJ Emery, above Cole Hudson, I liked Matthew Schaefer as a 16-year-old. I thought he was a heck of a player for Canada at that event too.
He really was. And honestly, like, I think we are really seeing the budding of a truly special defenseman as well. And so we're lucky that this tournament is going to provide those opportunities to see McKenna, Martone, Hagens, you mentioned Novotny, all these different players that are young and up and coming and just really getting started. There's a lot to like. So there's a lot there, and I'm really excited about it. All right. We're nearing the end of our show, but we've got a couple of different things. Neither of us put this into our, we do a show rundown, and neither of us put an answer in this. So we may be putting each other on the spot here, but Cam, I would like either your boldest prediction or your hottest take. Maybe it's the same thing for the 2025 World Junior Championship. What do you got?
I hate it. People are going to come for my citizenship here. My boldest take is that Canada gets ousted in the quarters again. And you'd have to go back nearly a decade for this team to not win a gold medal in a 2-year span, right? Like, I think it's 16-17 was the last time they went back-to-back years without a gold, and they got bounced in the quarters last year. That's my hottest take, is that they run into that maybe they struggle a little bit in round robin play, and now they're playing Czechia, in the quarters, and they end up hitting a hot goaltender, the offense dries up, something like that. Now, not to say, earlier, just a minute ago, I just said that they're meddling. So my allegiance is still with the Maple Leaf, but I do think that is a hot, spicy little take that has the potential to turn out true, and I hope it doesn't.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, it's bad. It's bad for business.
Yeah.
It's bad for business. Let me tell you, but I mean, it is interesting. And the thing is like, last year there was a lot of talk about, hey, did they, they didn't have their summer camp. They didn't have, the whatever, the evaluation camp wasn't long enough. The process was bad, all those different things. They tried to re-engineer that or go back to the way things did. They've got Al Murray. But again, you look at the roster decision, the different things. It's like, okay, you have to win a certain way, otherwise you're not going to win. And so that's going to be interesting. All right, so that's real. My boldest prediction, and this probably isn't that bold based on how much we've talked about it before. My boldest prediction is that after this tournament, Trey Augustine is going to go down as the greatest goalie in World Junior history for the United States of America. I think that he will be. There are 4 guys ever. He's one of them that have played in 3 World Junior Championships. And you think, Jack Campbell had a historic win. John Gibson had one of the greatest runs that I don't think we talk about enough in the 2013 World Juniors. Spencer Knight has won a gold medal. He had 3 shutouts in that tournament. There are all these different things, but I think Trey Augustine, he'll end up second all time in games played. He will end up one of the tops in wins. He will probably, he's going to have to win the gold medal to make this happen. I think in terms of the mind of everybody, because, his first go around, they got really pumped by Canada in the semifinals, and he wasn't quite ready. Last year, he was dominant in the medal round. This is the first time that Trey Augustine has been USA's true number 1 goalie. Last year, he was splitting time with Jacob Fowler. Yeah. This year, he's doing it. So for me, I think that when this tournament is over, we are going to be talking about Trey Augustine as the greatest American World Junior goalie in the history of the tournament. And I think, I honestly almost feel like it's not bold enough. I don't know what else. I'm not going to say these are like the greatest of all time. I think you think Tretiak and different guys that maybe had opportunity. I guess that was preached. This tournament didn't exist when Tretiak was there, but you know what I mean. But anyway, there's a lot of interesting and fun things that kind of come through here, and so that's what I got. I think Trey Augustine's going to be the man when all is said and done.
What a lukewarm take, eh? That sounds spicy at all. No, I like that one. I like that one a lot. That's good.
Yeah. All right. So now we're going to go and we're going to get to the part where we really upset everybody and give them all the business. And who knows, maybe we end up, we don't share these with each other before. So we'll see how similar or different we end up being. But World Junior Championship begins on December 26th in Ottawa. You'll be able to watch it on TSN in Canada, RDS in French, and you can watch it on NHL Network in the United States. We will have coverage on FloHockey. Elite Prospects always has tremendous coverage. You can follow that on EP Ringside as well. So make sure that you are checking out all of our coverage throughout the entire tournament on both sites, because let me tell you, you put those two together and you got pretty darn good information. So we're going to have a lot of good stuff for you coming up. But with that pitch out of the way, Cam Robinson, gold, silver, bronze, who you got?
Sweden's taking the bronze. Maybe knocking off those pesky Finns. They love to battle. Maybe that'll get them up for it if they're playing the Finns. Hey, that might do it. Got Canada, USA in the gold medal game. Home crowd's in it. Ottawa's banging. And those Yanks walk away with the gold, leaving Canada holding silver. That's what I'm calling. Back-to-back for the Americans. Apparently, Trey Augustine is going to be the goaltender forever for USA. But you know what I will say? Gabe Perreault is probably going to lead that tournament in scoring. How about that? That's something I didn't slip in there, too. I'll say Perreault is going to lead that tournament in scoring.
That was another one where I was like, I don't feel like that's bold enough for me to say this is my boldest prediction. Enough. But I agree with you. I think that we probably didn't talk about him enough, and that's kind of the way things go with Gabe Perreault. You don't really talk about him, and then all of a sudden you look up and he's like, oh, well, he has 85 million points. I mean, I guess that's how it goes. Casually. So I like that prediction as well. All right, here's what I got for you, Cam. Here's what I got for you. So my bronze medal winner for a 3rd consecutive year, the Czechs find a way, and they come away with bronze. So bronze medal for the Czechs. On the silver and the gold, I think all of us are hoping that we get not 1, but 2 USA-Canada games in this tournament. We get New Year's Eve, potential classic game, and we get this one. I've already said that I think Trey Augustine is going to go down as the greatest American goalie of all time. Of course, that means that I'm picking the United States. And this is the 2nd straight year I'm doing it. I've always thought that I'm very hard on the U.S. because I know where the holes are and I know where the bodies are buried. And so that's the one thing where it's like sometimes you can't see it. But I think what I said, Ryan Leonard, Trey Augustine, Zeev Buium, give me that trio against any trio in this tournament, and I would take that trio. Now, games aren't won with trios, but you need guys that drag you into the fight. Those are the guys that do it for you. And so that's where I'm at. So So we are both picking the United States. Now, it's never happened before. USA has never won back-to-back gold medals. They're bringing back the entire coaching staff. They've done that many times. It has never worked before. But David Carl, I think he's just built a little different. So I'm going to say that that's the one for me.
I like it. I hate it, but I like it. Yeah.
Oh, man. Well, all right. So let's go and put one more prediction on here. And I'll go first and give you my MVP. And then I want you to close us out with your MVP pick. My MVP pick for this tournament is going to be Ryan Leonard. And so captain of Team USA, I think he scores big goals. He comes up in the big minutes. He plays a hard-nosed style of hockey. He's going to play a ton. He came back for this opportunity. You look back last year, Rucker McGroarty was kind of the emotional leader of Team USA. I think Ryan Leonard is going to be that this year. He's going to be the guy that really ramps things up. So as much as I think Trey Augustine is going to have a significant say in this tournament, I think he's going to be the Director Award winner for the goalie of the tournament. Ryan Leonard is going to be the guy that is undeniable in this tournament because he's simply going to do what is necessary to win this thing. So I'm going to go with Ryan Leonard as my MVP pick. And Mr. Robinson, I turn it to you.
In a loss, Gavin. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's
that's not bad. It's not bad. We will be in Canada. Keep in mind, the voter base is going to be largely Canadian, so don't discount that.
That's true. It is possible. No, I'm going to say it's Trey Augustine. And I echo everything you said about Leonard, but I think Augustine is going to end up with a .955 save percentage, and they just won't be able to deny him as he shuts down the Canadians in the gold medal game too, if that happens. So if everything goes to how we predict it, it's Trey Augustine taking home the MVP this year.
Well, I can't say I already said he's going to be the greatest goalie of all time. So, I mean, if you throw an MVP on top of that, then I think it would make a lot of sense. So, yeah. Well, either way, I think we got a lot going. So, Cam, it's the holiday season, but it's World Junior season as well. I hope you get a chance to enjoy your family time here as we get going. I hope all our listeners do as well. Before we get out of here, let everybody know what they can look forward to on EP as we get going for the World Juniors here.
Big stuff. We just migrated. No more EP ringside. Everything, all the content now is on Elite Prospects. So if you're looking for all our deep dives, our stories, our breaking news, all that stuff, it's under Elite Prospects/stories. It's got a big tab over there. Check that out. Our app is being released as we speak. Look for that. If you're already a user, you'll get an email saying go download it everywhere you get your downloads. The Elite Prospect app is here. And I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but there may or may not be any ads on it. So that's really exciting stuff. We're going to have tons of content. Meet the Team series is just rolling out right now. We're going to have some predictions. Follow us on social media. I'll be running the TikTok as always, having some fun on there, making some video content. We're on the road. Features, scouting reports. We're going to be lighting it up on EP. This is literally our biggest time of year. We seem to break records every single year, right around January 5th for site traffic. And so we're looking to break some more records this year.
Well, yeah. Well, good luck to that. I hope that we're following suit over at FloHockey. We're going to have a ton of coverage. We've got a lot of video features that have already rolled out. You can catch them all on FloHockey.tv. You can also see them on our YouTube page. Also, make sure you're following all of FloHockey's social media. We're going to have some exclusive stuff across our social platforms. We've got a full team going as well. So it's going to be a lot of World Junior coverage. We're going to have a special focus on Team USA because they don't get as much love here as the boys in Canada do up there. So we want to make sure that we have an outlet. You can follow that right now by seeing all of the roster analysis that we've done on Team USA, player-by-player analysis. And then that'll be happening throughout the tournament. We won't just be covering USA. There'll be a lot more to it than that, but so much to come. And I hope everybody make sure you spend your time with your family here, Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and then get your butt in front of a TV on Boxing Day. We will be providing the coverage. So hopefully you'll make us part of that shoulder content. Elite Prospects, FloHockey. Make sure you are using all the tools at your disposal. It's never been a better time to be a fan of NHL prospects because there's never been more content for you to consume, and we have many, many places for you to do it. Cam, man, it's been fun. I hope you and the family have a great Christmas, and I can't wait to see you in Ottawa, buddy. I think this is it's going to be a great couple of weeks of hockey.
Yeah, same to you, bud. Happy holidays, and we'll see you in a couple days.
All right, everybody. That's going to do it for us. We hope that you have enjoyed this episode of Called Up the Prospects podcast. Don't forget to leave a kind rating and review on your podcast app of choice. Make sure you're subscribed to this podcast as well. And you can also get it on the Flow Sports app and FloHockey.tv and FloHockey's YouTube page. So wherever you are following us, we thank you. And we hope that you have a very, very happy holidays. And we will be talking to you soon, hopefully from Ottawa in the very near future. That's going to do it for this week's episode. My name is Chris Peters for Cam Robinson. We'll see you next time.